Sarah steps onto the porch, rifle in her hands, eyes hard as granite. 15 years you told me what to do. Hit me when I didn't obey. 15 years I took it. She raises the rifle, fires. The shot tears through the air, parting Victor's hair. Next one goes between your eyes. I ain't the woman you beat. I'm something new, and I ain't afraid of you no more. But how did an abused wife become a woman who could face down her monster? It all started on a frozen Valentine's Day, when one stranger decided to stop looking away. Before we begin, if you love stories of survival, justice, and second chances, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from right now? Let's see how far this story travels. Now, let's go back to where it all began. The sound of a woman's skull hitting frozen ground stopped every heart on Main Street. Not the gasps, not the screaming children. That single wet crack of bone meeting ice made time stop. Ethan Blackwell's hand found his rifle before his brain caught up. 6 years of silence, 6 years of telling himself it wasn't his problem ended in that heartbeat. Because he knew that sound. Had heard it in nightmares for 6 years straight. Elizabeth's skull hitting the cabin floor as fever seizures took her. But this wasn't a dream. This was broad daylight. This was Valentine's Day, 1878. This was Thornhill, Wyoming, where good Christian folk watched evil happen and called it family business. 4 little girls screamed from a porch 50 yards away. The youngest, 3 days old, wailed in her sister's arms. Their mother lay crumpled in bloody snow, while her husband raised his boot to finish it. 4th daughter. Victor Mitchell spat the words loud enough for the whole town to hear. 4th daughter and not one son. Cursed woman. Nobody moved to help. Not the sheriff, not the preacher, not one soul in Silver Creek. Ethan's jaw tightened. The bag of nails he'd been holding hit the ground. His hands moved to ghost reins without conscious thought. The gray mare sensed something different in her rider today. Something that had been dead for 6 years was waking up. Sarah Mitchell tried to push herself up from the ice. Her arm buckled. She fell face first into the snow. Fresh blood mixed with old. Victor laughed. The sound carried across the frozen street like breaking glass. Look at her. Pathetic. 15 years of marriage and 4 daughters. Not one son to carry my name. My father's land needs an heir. Main Street was packed that morning. Valentine's Day market drew folks from 3 counties over. Shopkeepers stood in doorways. Women clutched shawls against the February wind. Men kept their hands in their pockets watching like it was theater. Free entertainment before lunch. The oldest girl on the porch looked about 10. She handed the newborn to her sister and stepped forward, small fists clenched at her sides. Her voice rang out clear despite her size. Leave Mama alone. Victor spun toward her, his face twisted with the particular rage of a man challenged by a child. Before what, little girl? Before I do to you what I do to her. Something snapped inside Ethan Blackwell. He'd spent 6 years as a ghost, working his half-built ranch alone, speaking to no one but the blacksmith when he needed supplies, visiting Elizabeth and Samuel's graves on the hill behind his cabin, maybe once a month when the pain got too sharp to ignore. He'd promised himself after they died that he was done. Done with caring, done with losing, done with standing up for anything because standing up meant having something to lose. But that child's voice, that 10-year-old girl standing between her mother and a monster, while 40 grown adults watched and did nothing, Elizabeth would have run into that street without thinking, would have put herself between Victor and Sarah without hesitation. She'd have been furious at Ethan for waiting even this long. His boots hit frozen ground before he made the decision to move. Mitchell, one word, sharp as a rifle crack across Main Street. Victor froze mid-motion, his boot hung suspended over Sarah's head, between stomping and murder, between violence and killing. Ethan walked forward. He didn't rush. 10 years as a Texas Ranger taught him that the walk was the weapon, the silence before it, the space a man gave himself to think about what happened when men like Ethan Blackwell stopped being patient. The crowd shifted. Whispers rippled outward like stones thrown in still water. That's Blackwell, the one who killed Billy Jackson. Been living like a hermit since his wife died. What's he doing here? Ethan stopped 3 feet from Victor, close enough to smell whiskey on the man's breath, close enough to count the blood drops on his knuckles. close enough to see the calculation happening behind Victor's eyes. This ain't your concern, Blackwell. Ride on. Can't do that. She's my wife. Victor lowered his boot but kept his stance wide. Aggressive. My property, my business. Ethan let the words sit between them for 3 heartbeats. Property. That what you call her law does. Victor's chin lifted. What I do with my property ain't nobody's concern but mine. Law also says you can't beat a person half dead in public. Ethan's hand rested on his rifle. Easy, not threatening yet. Seems we got a problem. The crowd pressed closer. This was better than theater now. This was Ethan Blackwell speaking for the first time in 6 years. This was the man who brought down the Jackson gang single-handed. This was a story they'd tell for months. Sarah tried to stand again. Her legs wouldn't hold her. She collapsed back into snow that was more red than white now. Victor laughed again. That brittle, ugly sound. Look at her. Can't even stand up. 15 years I fed her, clothed her, kept a roof over her head. This is how she repays me daughters. 4 useless daughters when my father's ranch needs a son. So you beat her for something God decides. Ethan's voice stayed level, quiet, dangerous in its calm. She's cursed. Victor gestured at Sarah like she was evidence in a trial. Doctor said so himself, barren of sons. God's judgment on her sins. Doctor's a fool. Ethan took 1 step closer. And you're worse for believing him. Movement on the porch caught his eye. The oldest girl, the one who'd shouted, stood rigid as a fence post. Her younger sister clutched her skirt, face buried in fabric. A third girl, maybe 7, held the newborn so carefully it made Ethan's chest hurt, like she'd been doing it her whole short life. Hannah, Victor's voice turned toward his daughter. Get inside before I make you. Before what Ethan's voice dropped to something cold. Final. You going to hit your daughter too? Right here, in front of everyone. For just a moment, fear flickered across Victor's face. Real fear. The kind that came from sudden awareness that the world was watching, that some things couldn't be undone once witnessed. Victor Mitchell sat on the town council. His father had owned a third of Thornhill before drinking himself to death. The Mitchell name meant something in this territory. Victor built his entire identity on that foundation, on reputation, on respect he'd never actually earned. This ain't finished, Blackwell. Didn't figure it was. She comes home tonight or I get the sheriff to drag her back. Sheriff can try. Simple words. Quiet. But Sheriff Hayes suddenly found his boots very interesting. Victor spat in the snow, turned on his heel, stalked toward the Broken Spoke Saloon with his shoulders hunched against more than cold. 3 men followed him, ranch hands probably. Or hired muscle. Hard to tell the difference in this territory. The rest of the crowd stayed, watching, waiting, always waiting for someone else to act first. Ethan knelt beside Sarah. It was worse up close. Split lip, left eye swollen completely shut, bruises on her throat in the exact shape of fingerprints, and beneath the fresh wounds, older ones. Yellow-green shadows of week-old bruises, a nose that had healed crooked because it was never set right, scar tissue at her hairline from being dragged by her hair. Years of this. Years, ma'am. He kept his voice soft. She flinched. That single word from a man's mouth made her flinch. Not the pain, not the blood running into her eye, not the broken teeth or cracked ribs. The word ma'am spoken gentle was what triggered her fear response. That was what 15 years looked like. I ain't going to hurt you. Her good eye focused on him, blue like winter ice, empty and full all at once. Why, barely a whisper through broken teeth. Ethan didn't have an answer for that, not one that made sense. Not with Elizabeth and Samuel's graves fresh in his mind after 6 years. Not with failure carved so deep into his bones it felt like part of his skeleton. Can you stand? Don't know. He slid his arms under her. She weighed nothing. Fear and bones. 15 years of surviving what should have killed her 3 times over. He lifted her onto Ghost. The mare stood steady despite the smell of blood. Hannah, the girl's head snapped up. She'd been watching him with eyes that trusted absolutely nothing. Get your sisters. All of them. Now, mister, we can't. Her voice carried the exhaustion of someone 3 times her age. Your mama needs help. My ranch is closer than anywhere. You coming or you going to stand there while she bleeds? Something shifted in Hannah's face. Not trust, not even close to trust, but recognition maybe. Recognition that staying meant watching her mother die. She grabbed Claire's hand. Claire grabbed Rose. They ran. The crowd parted like water around stones. People stepped back to let them pass, but nobody offered help. Nobody offered a coat for the girls shivering in thin dresses. Nobody offered a blanket for Sarah bleeding all over Ethan's saddle. Just watched, bore witness, would talk about it later over supper, but wouldn't actually do anything. Ethan mounted behind Sarah, pulled her against his chest. The girls pressed together in front of him. 4 children who'd learned to make themselves small, who'd learned that survival meant being invisible. Blackwell. Sheriff Hayes found his voice finally. His badge caught weak sunlight. You can't take a man's family. Watching it happen. There will be consequences. Already are. Ethan looked at the sheriff, at the crowd, at the whole town that let this happen for 15 years. You just been ignoring them. Ghost moved forward, strong, steady. She'd carried Ethan through worse. Through the night, Elizabeth died screaming. Through the morning, he dug 2 graves in frozen ground. Through 6 years of grief so heavy, it felt like wearing wet wool in summer. Martha Peaton stepped from her store as they passed, pressed a bundle into Ethan's saddlebag. Medicine, bandages. Her hands shook, but her eyes were steady. Take care of them, she whispered. All of them. Yes, ma'am. Victor's voice followed them down Main Street, carried on the wind, loud enough to be a promise. I'll burn that ranch to the ground, Blackwell. You hear me? I'll burn it all. Ethan didn't look back. 12 miles of frozen prairie stretched between Thornhill and his ranch. Bitter wind, weak sun doing nothing against cold that cut through 3 layers of wool. Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness. Her blood soaked through Ethan's coat. Warm at first, then cold as it froze. The girls huddled together in silence. They'd learned early that making noise brought attention. Attention brought fists. Better to be quiet, better to be nothing. 5 miles out, the 7-year-old spoke. You going to hurt Mama too? Her name was Claire. He'd heard Victor shout it earlier. Ethan pulled Ghost to a stop. Middle of nowhere, wind cutting through all of them. Nothing but white earth and gray sky for miles. He dismounted, knelt in snow that came up to his knees. Put himself at eye level with this child who'd already seen too much. What's your name, Claire? Claire, I like that name. He took off his hat, held it in both hands. The wind immediately tried to steal it. I ain't going to hurt your mama. Not now, not ever, none of you. Claire studied his face like she was reading a book, looking for lies, for the signs she'd learned to recognize in her father, the tells that meant danger coming. Papa said nice things too. I reckon he did. How do I know you're different? You don't. Not yet. Ethan met her eyes without blinking. Words are cheap. Only thing that proves different is time. Claire's jaw tightened, small muscles working under skin too pale. Mama can't take more. She'll die. I know. Ivy needs her. She's only 3 days old. I know that too. The little girl's voice went completely flat. Dead, old beyond imagining. If you hurt any of them, I'll kill you myself. Ethan didn't smile, didn't dismiss her. 7 years old making death threats should have been absurd, but her eyes held nothing childish, nothing soft, just cold calculation and absolute certainty. If I hurt them, Ethan said quiet, I'll deserve it. Something shifted in Claire's face. Not trust. The seed of what might become trust given time and proof. Maybe. He stood, mounted. They rode. Ghost picked her way through snowdrifts. The girls swayed with her movement. Sarah's breathing grew more ragged. Ethan could feel her ribs expanding and contracting against his chest. Could feel how wrong it was. How damaged. Hannah spoke without turning around. Most men would have kept riding, in the street. Would have pretended not to see. Maybe. Why didn't you, Ethan, thought about lying? About giving some noble answer about duty and righteousness? But this child deserved truth. Don't know yet. Maybe I'll figure it out later. The ranch appeared on the horizon like a broken promise. Cabin half finished because Ethan stopped building the day he buried Elizabeth. Barn solid because horses needed shelter even when their owner stopped caring about his own. Nothing else for miles, just wind and white, and the ghosts of plans that died 6 years ago. He'd meant to add rooms, plant trees, build a life with Elizabeth and fill it with children and laughter. Then fever came, then death, then silence. Now 5 strangers needed shelter, and his half-built life would have to be enough. Hannah was already moving before Ghost fully stopped. She helped her sisters down with practiced efficiency, got Rose steadied, took Ivy from Claire's arms. Turned toward Ethan. Mama needs to be inside. They got Sarah onto the bed, the only real bed in the cabin. Ethan built the fire while Hannah stripped her mother's frozen clothes with hands that knew exactly what to do. She'd done this before, many times. Tended wounds, held the family together while her mother recovered enough to take another beating. 10 years old carrying weight that would break most grown men. Hot water's on the stove. Ethan kept his back turned, giving them privacy. Clean rags in the trunk, medicine in my saddlebag. You ain't staying, barn needs checking. He headed for the door. Your mama don't need a man standing over her right now. She needs her girls. Hannah's voice stopped him with his hand on the latch. Most men would stay. Watch. I ain't most men. He stepped into cold that hit like a fist. Welcomed it. Needed something to feel besides the rage building in his chest. 6 years of avoiding other people's trouble. 6 years telling himself he was done with caring. Done with losing, but that scream, that sound of a woman who'd stopped expecting help. He'd heard it before, in nightmares, in Elizabeth's voice when fever took hold, and the doctor said nothing more could be done. When she begged Ethan to save their son, but Samuel was already gone, already cold, already lost. He couldn't save Elizabeth, couldn't save Samuel. But maybe these 5, maybe. Night fell fast the way it did in Wyoming winter. Every few hours, Ethan crossed to the cabin, knocked twice, didn't enter. Mama's sleeping, Hannah's voice came through the door. Fever's down some. At midnight, the door opened. Sarah stood there swaying, wrapped in a quilt, face swollen beyond recognition. One eye sealed shut, but the other eye clear, focused. Mr. Blackwell, ma'am, you should be in bed. Need to say something first. Morning's fine. Can't wait. She gripped the door frame like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Maybe it was. I don't know what you want from us. Don't know why you did what you did. But whatever it is, her voice cracked. Tell me now so I can prepare my girls. Ethan stood in snow that came to his ankles, looked at this shattered woman who expected nothing from the world but more pain. I don't want anything. Men always want something. Then maybe men need to change. That ain't an answer. No, ma'am. He took a breath, let it out slow, watched it frost in the air between them. Here's truth. 6 years back, I lost my wife, Elizabeth. Lost my son, too, Samuel. 3 days old, same as your Ivy. Sarah's expression stayed fixed. Swelling made it impossible to read. Fever took them both. I've been dead since then. Going through motions. Working, eating, sleeping. None of it meaning a damn thing. Then I heard you scream this morning, and something woke up in me. He paused, made sure she was really listening. Your healing ain't my job, no ma'am. And I ain't asking it to be. Just saying you and your girls stay long as you need, no strings, no price. When you're healed enough to go, if that's what you want, I'll give you supplies and money for wherever. Sarah watched him. Wind cut between them sharp enough to draw blood. Why should I believe that? Shouldn't, not yet. Only time proves anything. And when Victor comes, Ethan's jaw went tight. Then he finds out why I stopped being a ranger. Something flickered in Sarah's good eye. Not hope. The ghost of what hope used to look like. My girls are scared of men. All men, even the kind ones. I know. Might never trust you. Any of you. That's their right. She swayed. He stepped forward, then stopped. Waited. Let her decide. You can help me in, she said quiet. Just this once. He crossed the distance. Let her lean on his arm. Bones and willpower. Nothing else holding her up. Inside, 3 girls slept tangled together by the fire like puppies. Ivy fussed in a drawer that had been turned into a makeshift crib. He helped Sarah to the bed, pulled blankets over her, tucked them in like he used to do for Elizabeth when she was sick. Mr. Blackwell? Ma'am, my name's Sarah. Sarah Ann. Ethan, mostly just Ethan. The smallest nod. Like even that took effort. Thank you for today. Rest now, Sarah Ann. He turned to leave. Her voice stopped him at the door. Ethan. He stopped, hand on the latch. That thing about waking up. Her voice faded as sleep pulled her down. I've been dead too. Longer than 6 years. Maybe we're both learning how to breathe again. He didn't answer, couldn't find words that fit. Stepped into cold that felt less bitter now somehow. Stars burned overhead, cold and far away. Somewhere out there, Victor Mitchell was planning, gathering men, building rage into something actionable. Here, 5 broken people were sleeping under his roof. Ethan walked to the barn, sat in hay that smelled like ghost and leather in simpler times. Didn't sleep. But for the first time in 6 years, he didn't want to. Morning came gray. Ethan was splitting wood when Hannah appeared in the cabin doorway, her hair stuck up on one side, face still marked by sleep. Mama's still out. Good. Ivy needs milk. We ain't got any. Goat in the barn. Old, but she gives. You know how we had goats before? Hannah's voice went flat. Before Papa sold them for whiskey money. Then you're better at it than me. She kicks me every time. Almost a smile crossed Hannah's face. Gone so fast, Ethan wondered if he imagined it. Claire's drawing. She likes to draw. Only when she feels safe. A test. Ethan heard it clear as church bells. Then I'm glad she feels safe enough. Hannah crossed the yard, stopped halfway, turned back. Mr. Ethan. Ma'am, if this is a trick. Her small hands curled into fists. Mama might trust you. Claire too. Maybe Rose. But I won't. Not ever. I'll be watching. Always. Claire already told me she'd kill me if I hurt any of you. Hannah blinked. She did. She did. I told her if I hurt you, I deserve it. Telling you the same. Hannah stared at him for a long moment, then nodded once. Sharp and final. Walked to the barn. Ethan watched her go. 10 years old already carrying the world. Eyes that trusted nothing. She reminded him of himself at that age. After his own father's fists taught him that survival meant vigilance. That safety was temporary at best. Maybe that's why he'd stopped yesterday. Some debts took a lifetime to pay. He picked up the axe, split another log. The sound rang across empty prairie like a heartbeat waking up. By noon, the girls found their rhythm. Hannah milked Daisy with expert hands, fed Ivy, who sucked down goat's milk like she'd been starving, which she probably had been. Claire drew by the fire, birds and horses, in a cabin with smoke rising peaceful from the chimney. Rose followed Ethan everywhere. What's your horse called? Ghost. Why, she's gray. Quiet. Can I pet her gentle like? I'm always gentle. Rose's voice got smaller. Papa said I was too soft. Needed toughening. Ethan stopped. Knelt. Met her eyes. Nothing wrong with gentle Rose. World's hard enough. Gentle is valuable. Her face scrunched up. Valuable worth something. Worth a lot. Pause. 5-year-old brain working through concepts no child should need. Papa said I wasn't worth nothing. Ethan's hands tightened on the axe handle before he could stop them. Forced himself to relax. To breathe. Your papa was wrong. Rose thought about this with that particular seriousness children have before the world beats it out of them. I like you, Mr. Cowboy. I like you too, Miss Rose. She grabbed his hand. Small, frozen fingers that barely wrapped around 3 of his. Pulled him toward the barn with complete trust that terrified him. First time in 6 years, Ethan felt something besides grief. Felt like morning after long dark. That night, Sarah sat up for supper. They ate around her bed. Ethan on a stool by the door. Girls on the floor. Beans and cornbread. Simple. But the fire was warm and nobody was bleeding. Girls, Sarah's voice was still rough. Mind your manners. Thank you, Mr. Ethan. Welcome. Rose looked up with crumbs on her chin. Mr. Cowboy, you got kids. Silence crashed down. Hannah glared daggers at her sister. Sarah's breath caught. Ethan set his spoon down slow. Had a son. Samuel. Lived 3 days. Rose's eyes went wide. He in heaven, I reckon. He lonely up there, hope not. His mama's with him. Elizabeth. Then he ain't lonely. Rose said it with complete certainty. Mamas fix everything. Ethan's throat closed tight. Yes, ma'am, they do. Quiet settled. Different this time. Shared. Claire stood, crossed to Ethan, held out a paper covered in charcoal. 5 stick figures holding hands. Tall man, woman, 4 small shapes in a row. Underneath in crooked letters, family. Ethan's hand shook as he took it. Thank you, Claire. It's beautiful. She nodded. Went back to her spot. Sarah watched. Something cracked behind her eyes. First fissure in walls built over 15 years. Mr. Ethan. Ma'am, that offer about staying, still good long pause. I ain't ready to trust you. Might not ever be, I understand, but tonight, she paused. Tonight, I'm going to believe you mean what you say. That's enough for now. Wind screamed outside. Somewhere out there, Victor Mitchell gathered men, planned revenge, built rage into action. In here, 5 broken souls huddled together, worth fighting for. Ethan knew that now. He just didn't know yet how hard that fight would be. Late that night, Hannah appeared from the darkness, held out a folded paper. Mrs. Peton gave me this, said to give it to you when nobody was watching. Ethan unfolded it, read. His blood ran cold. Medical report, confidential, patient Sarah Mitchell. Diagnosis: repeated miscarriages in female births not due to divine curse or female weakness. Cause: severe repeated abdominal trauma during pregnancy. Bruising patterns consistent with domestic battery. Note: Mr. Victor Mitchell offered $200 to amend official report to state barren of sons by God's judgment. Payment received. Official report amended as requested. Dr. Patterson, March 1875. Ethan's hands shook with rage he hadn't felt since the day he buried Elizabeth and Samuel. Victor didn't just beat Sarah, he beat their unborn babies, then paid a doctor to blame God. 15 years of guilt Sarah carried. 15 years thinking she was cursed, when all along it was him. He folded the paper, tucked it in his shirt pocket, right over his heart where Elizabeth's stopped watch rested. Evidence. Real evidence that could send Victor to prison. But first they had to survive long enough to use it. Outside, the wind shifted, temperature dropped. Ethan knew those signs. Blizzard coming. This one would be bad. 3 days trapped minimum. Maybe 4, 5 people who barely knew each other. 4 days, 1 cabin, trust thin as ice over deep water. And somewhere out there, Victor Mitchell was planning. But the blizzard would come first. Sometimes nature's cruelty was the greatest salvation. Because while Victor couldn't reach them, Ethan had time to do what he hadn't done in 6 years, learn how to care again. The blizzard hit at midnight. Ethan heard it coming before he saw it. Wind shifting direction, temperature dropping so fast the air itself seemed to crystallize. That particular howl that meant whiteout conditions for days. He'd survived enough Wyoming winters to know this one would be bad. He crossed to the cabin, knocked twice, sharp and quick. Storm coming, bad one. I'm bringing the goat inside. Hannah's voice came through the door. Inside, where cabin? Only choice. 3 minutes later, chaos erupted. Ethan hauled Daisy through the door. The goat bleated protest. Ivy started crying. Rose started crying in sympathy. The fire crackled and popped as wind found every crack in the walls. Sarah struggled to sit up. Her face had healed some. Both eyes open now, though the left was still purple-black. How long? In 3-4 days, maybe. Could be more. We got enough food, enough. Water, too. Firewood might run low, but I stacked some by the door. She nodded. Calculating, planning, already thinking 3 moves ahead the way someone learned to do when survival depended on anticipating problems. You staying in the barn. Have to keep the horse calm. You'll freeze. Got blankets. You'll still freeze. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Something neither was ready to name. I'll be fine, Sarah Ann. You better be. Girls are just starting to. She stopped, shook her head. Just don't die out there. Yes, ma'am. He stepped back into wind that immediately tried to kill him. 4 days trapped. 5 people who barely knew each other. A husband out there planning vengeance. And a storm that would change everything. Ethan pulled his coat tight and walked into the howling white. The blizzard buried them alive. First night wind tore at the cabin walls like something hungry. Ethan checked the door every hour, piled snow against gaps to seal out cold that could kill in minutes. The girls slept in a pile by the fire, tangled together like they'd learned to do for warmth when their father was raging, and heat meant survival. Sarah drifted in and out, fever spiking with the dropping temperature. her body fighting infection from wounds that should have been treated by a real doctor instead of a retired ranger with shaking hands and old guilt. Second morning, Ethan couldn't see his hand in front of his face outside. White everywhere. No up, no down, no direction. He made it to the barn by following the rope he'd strung between buildings. Ghost was calm. The silence of the horse told him that this storm had more to give. He fought his way back to the cabin, ice forming in his beard, fingers going numb inside thick gloves. How bad, Sarah asked from the bed. Seen worse. Liar. Almost a smile. First one he'd seen from her. Fine, ain't seen worse, but we'll make it. Hannah looked up from feeding Ivy with a rag soaked in goat's milk. How long? Another 2 days? Maybe 3. We got food enough. Ethan didn't mention that enough meant thin soup and hard bread. Didn't mention that if the storm lasted 5 days instead of 4, they'd be in trouble. Claire stopped drawing. What about Daisy? She's in the corner eating your mama's quilt. Rose giggled. First real laugh since they'd arrived. The sound hit Ethan somewhere deep. Somewhere he'd thought was dead. Mr. Cowboy, can I name the goat? She ain't got a name. You didn't give her one? Never thought to. Rose's face scrunched with concentration that was absolutely precious. Daisy. She looks like a daisy. Daisy it is. Sarah watched this exchange with something shifting in her eyes. Not trust yet, but the ice cracking. The thaw beginning. You should eat something, Ethan told her. Keep your strength, ain't hungry. Don't recall asking if you was hungry. Said you should eat. Her jaw tightened. You giving me orders now. I'm asking you not to die in my cabin. Girls need their mama. The words hit hard. Sarah looked at her daughters, then back at him. Fine, but only because they need me, not because you said, whatever gets food in you. He handed her a bowl of beans. Their fingers touched. Both pulled back fast like they'd been burned. Hannah noticed. Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Just followed it away in that mental catalog she kept of everything that might be important later. The second day crawled. Wind never stopped. Temperature dropped until breath froze in the air. Ethan fed the fire constantly, rationing wood, calculating how long they could last. The girls grew restless. Rose bounced off walls. Claire drew until she ran out of paper, then started drawing on the floor with ash. Hannah paced like a caged animal. Only Sarah stayed still, watching, thinking, her mind working through problems Ethan could only guess at. Tell me about Elizabeth. The question came out of nowhere. Middle of the afternoon, girls occupied with a game Hannah invented using buttons and string. Ethan looked up from the harness he was mending. What do you want to know? Whatever you want to tell. He set the harness down, stared at the fire. Let the memories come. Met her in San Antonio. I was 22. She was a school teacher. Prettiest thing I ever saw. She had this laugh, like bells ringing, made you feel like the world wasn't such a hard place. Sarah listened without interrupting. Just let him talk. We married 6 months later, moved up here to start fresh. I had dreams about this ranch. Big dreams. Horses, cattle, children. What happened? Winter happened. Ethan's voice got rougher. Elizabeth got pregnant our first year. Was harder than we expected. Then the baby came early. Samuel. His voice caught. Broke. He was so small, like holding a bird. Lived 3 days, just long enough to make us love him forever. Sarah's good hand found her chest, over her heart. Elizabeth got the fever after. Doctor couldn't do nothing. I sat with her for 2 days while she burned up. She kept asking for Samuel. Didn't have the heart to tell her he was already gone. I'm sorry, me too. Ethan picked up the harness again. Something to do with his hands, something to focus on besides the pain that never really faded. Buried them both on the hill behind the cabin. Visit sometimes. Mostly don't. Hurts too much. Silence stretched between them. Then Sarah spoke, her voice different, harder. I was a mail-order bride. Ethan's hands went still. My papa sold me to Victor for $50 and a mule. I didn't know what marriage meant. Thought it was like the stories, love and partnership and building something together. Took me one night to learn different, Sarah. No, you told me yours. I'm telling you mine. Her voice stayed flat, like reciting facts about someone else's life. Victor hit me the first time on our wedding night. I was 17. Didn't know nothing about men, about marriage. He said I looked at his brother wrong during the ceremony. Beat me till I couldn't stand. She paused, breathed. 15 years. Every time I got pregnant, he'd stop for a few months. Then the baby would come, and it wouldn't be a boy, and he'd start again. Worse each time. Why didn't you run? Where Sarah laughed bitter. I got no family, no money, 4 daughters. What man wants another man's daughters? What town wants a runaway wife? So you stayed. I survived. There's a difference. She finally looked at him. Really looked. I stopped being Sarah Ann a long time ago. Became something else. Something that could take the hits and keep the girls alive. You're still Sarah Ann. You don't know that. I'm looking at her right now. Their eyes locked. Understanding. Recognition. 2 broken people seeing each other clearly for the first time. Hannah's voice cut through. Mama! Ivy's crying. The moment shattered. Sarah struggled up. Ethan didn't help. She hadn't asked. The second night was worse. Temperature dropped so low the water bucket froze solid. Ethan broke ice every hour to keep them drinking. The girls huddled closer. Even Daisy pressed against the fire. Around midnight, Rose woke screaming. Papa's coming to get us. Sarah held her, rocking, whispering. But Rose couldn't stop shaking. He's going to hurt Mama again. He's going to burn everything. Shh, baby. Papa's not here. He said he would. He said he'd burn Mr. Cowboy's house down. Ethan knelt beside them. Rose looked at me. Red-rimmed eyes found his. You hear that wind outside? She nodded. That wind won't let nobody through. Not tonight, not tomorrow. Your papa can't get here even if he tried. Promise, promise, and after the storm, I'll keep you safe then too. How? Because that's what family does. Rose's crying slowed. Are we family? The question hung in the frozen air. Sarah stiffened. Hannah watched from her blankets. Claire stopped pretending to sleep. We can be, Ethan said quietly. If you want. Rose threw her arms around his neck. Small body shaking with sobs and relief and hope she'd thought was dead. I want us to be family. Over her shoulder, Ethan met Sarah's eyes. Something in them he hadn't seen before. Something like hope. Third day, the storm finally weakened. Wind died to a moan instead of a scream. Snow kept falling, but lighter now. Ethan made it to the barn and back without losing the rope. Tomorrow, he told them. Day after, at most, we'll be free. Hannah looked up from feeding Ivy. Then what? Then we figure out what comes next. Papa will come. Probably. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to. You'll fight him if that's what it takes. He'll bring men. The sheriff? Maybe more. I know. Hannah studied him with those 2 old eyes. Why? Why risk all this for us? Ethan thought about lying, giving her some noble speech about duty and honor. But Hannah had heard enough lies to last a lifetime. Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. That ain't enough. Maybe not for most folks. It's enough for me. Sarah spoke from the bed. Hannah let him be. Mama, I said let him be. Man's got his reasons. Don't got to explain them all to you. Hannah's jaw tightened, but she nodded, turned away. Claire appeared at Ethan's elbow, held out another drawing. This one showed the cabin. Snow all around. Inside the window, 5 figures sat by a fire. Underneath, in careful letters, safe now. That's beautiful, Claire. It's us. I can see that. I never drew us safe before. Always drew us hiding, running. Now we're safe. Ethan's throat closed tight. This child who barely spoke had just said more than most adults managed in a lifetime. You are safe, Claire. I promise, she nodded once. Went back to her spot. Sarah watched the whole thing. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. They're starting to love you. They're just grateful. No, it's more than that. Hannah's fighting it, but even she's cracking. Claire doesn't draw for just anyone. And Rose, Sarah shook her head. Rose is already yours. Sarah, don't pretend you don't see it. Don't pretend you don't feel it. He couldn't answer, couldn't deny it. What happens when Victor takes us back? He ain't taking you anywhere. The law stood and watched him beat you in the street. The law don't get a say no more. You can't fight the whole world, Ethan. Don't have to. Just have to fight one man. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I've been fighting 15 years. Fighting to survive. Fighting to protect my girls. I'm tired, Ethan. Bone tired. The kind of tired that makes you think about not waking up. Don't talk like that. It's the truth. Only thing kept me going was them. She looked at her daughters. They deserve better than me. Better than what I can give. You're wrong. I'm realistic. No, Ethan leaned forward. You're broken. There's a difference. Broken can be fixed. Realistic just gives up. Easy for you to say. Easy. Something dark crossed his face. I buried my wife and son in frozen ground with my own hands. Dug those graves while my fingers went numb. I know exactly how hard it is to keep going when everything inside you wants to stop. Sarah met his eyes, saw the pain there. The same pain she carried. Then how? Her voice cracked. How do you do it one day at a time? 1 hour, 1 minute? If that's all you got, you just keep breathing until breathing starts to matter again. Does it start to matter? Ethan looked at her daughters, at Hannah's stubborn jaw, Claire's quiet drawings, Rose's fierce love, baby Ivy sleeping peaceful. Yeah, he said, it does. Night fell, last night of the storm. The girls slept early, worn out from days of confinement. Even Hannah's watchful eyes finally closed. Sarah couldn't sleep, neither could Ethan. They sat by the dying fire, close enough to whisper without waking the children. Late that night, Hannah appeared from the darkness. Couldn't sleep. She sat by the fire with Ethan. Long silence stretched between them. Then she spoke, voice so quiet he almost missed it. I tried to kill him once. Ethan went still. What, Papa? Victor. I tried to kill him. She stared into the fire. 10 years old with ancient eyes. I was 8. Mama was pregnant with Ivy. Papa came home drunk. Started hitting her. Said the baby better be a boy or he'd kill them both. Hannah paused. Breathed. I waited till he passed out. Got his hunting knife from the mantel. I stood over him for an hour. Knife in my hand, shaking so hard I thought I'd drop it. Her voice broke, but she kept going. I put the blade to his throat 3 times. 3 times I pressed down. But I couldn't do it. I was 8 years old and I couldn't kill my own father. Tears now, streaming down her face. Mama woke up, found me there. She took the knife, hid it, never spoke of it again. But I see it in her eyes sometimes. Sees me different after that. Sees what I'm capable of. Ethan didn't judge, didn't minimize, just listened. You were 8 years old protecting your mama. That don't make you evil. Makes you brave. You didn't kill him. That matters. But I wanted to. I still want to. Every time he hits her, every time he makes Rose cry, every time mama flinches at loud noises. I want him dead. She looked at Ethan, eyes desperate for absolution. Does that make me bad? Ethan pulled her close. This child who carried too much for too long. No sweetheart. Makes you human. Makes you a daughter who loves her mama. Wanting something and doing something are different things. You didn't pull that trigger. That's what counts. Hannah broke, really broke, sobbed into his chest like the child she should have been allowed to be. If you had the chance, she asked when she could speak again, would you kill him? Honest question, deserved honest answer. 6 years ago, yes, without hesitation. I was younger, angrier, thought violence solved everything. Now, he paused. Now I know killing him would make me like him. And I ain't like him. Won't ever be like him. So we do this the right way. We use the law. We use evidence. We make sure he pays without becoming him. Hannah nodded slowly. What if the law don't work? Then we figure something else out. Together. Together, Hannah repeated, testing the word like her mama had. I think I can sleep now. She stood, paused at the door to the sleeping area. Mr. Ethan, yeah, thank you for listening, for not thinking I'm awful. You ain't awful, Hannah. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met, and that's saying something. Small smile, first real one he'd seen from her. Then she was gone. Morning of the 4th day, wind died to almost nothing. Snow so light you could see 20 feet instead of 2. Ethan made it to the barn and back without the rope. 5th day since the rescue. Storm had broken. Ethan saddled Ghost while the girls ate breakfast. Sarah met him at the barn. Where you going, Peton Place? Dorothy's got a fast horse. She can get a message to Fort Carson quicker than anyone. You trust her. She helped us once. She'll help again. What if Victor's watching the road? Then I'll deal with him. Sarah grabbed his arm. Don't. Don't what? Don't go looking for a fight. I ain't looking. But I ain't running either. She held on a moment longer. Then let go. Come back. 2 words. Simple. But they meant everything. Plan 2. The ride took 2 hours through snow that was deep and crusted. Ghost picked her way carefully. Ethan thought about Sarah, about the girls, about Elizabeth and Samuel, about second chances. He was a mile from Dorothy's place when he saw the smoke. Black smoke rising thick against white sky. Ethan kicked Ghost into a run. Dorothy Peaton's homestead was burning, house consumed by flames that licked at the sky. Barn already collapsed, everything destroyed, and standing in the snow watching it burn were 4 men on horseback. Victor Mitchell, Sheriff Hayes, 2 others Ethan didn't recognize. Dorothy stood in her nightgown, gray hair loose, watching 60 years of memories turn to ash. Blackwell. Victor smiled. Come to see the show. Ethan pulled Ghost to a stop, hand on his rifle. 4 against 1. Bad odds. What did you do? Me nothing. Terrible accident. Old woman's stove caught fire. Such a tragedy. Dorothy's voice cut through. Liar. You set this fire. I saw you. Careful, Dorothy. Victor's smile never wavered. Making accusations you can't prove is dangerous. People might think you're crazy. Old. Confused. Sheriff Hayes looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Ethan dismounted, walked toward Victor. That's close enough, Blackwell. Where's my wife? Where are my daughters safe? At my ranch. Liar, am I? Victor leaned forward in his saddle. See, I know where they are. And Dorothy here was going to help you get a message to Fort Carson. Now she can't help nobody. And by the time you find another way to reach your ranger friend, this will all be over. What do you want, Victor? What's mine? My wife, my property, my daughters. They ain't property. Law says different. I don't care what the law says. Victor's smile faded. You should, because I got the law right here. He gestured at the sheriff. And I got papers, legal papers. Says Sarah Ann Mitchell belongs to me. Says those girls are mine to raise as I see fit. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. The 2 strangers reached for their guns. Ethan drew. 1 shot, 2. Both men fell from their horses clutching their arms. Wounded, not dead, out of the fight. Victor and Sheriff Hayes sat frozen, staring at the gun in Ethan's hand. Draw, Ethan said quiet. Give me a reason. Victor's face went red. You shot my men, winged them. They'll live, more than they deserve. This is murder. Sheriff, arrest this man. Hayes' hand hadn't moved toward his gun. Smart man. Well, Victor screamed, do your job. He drew on me first, Ethan said. Both of them. Ask Dorothy. He's right. Dorothy's voice steady despite the flames behind her. I saw everything. Your men drew first. She's lying. You calling me a liar? Victor Mitchell, you who just burned down my home. You who beats his wife in the street. You want to talk about lies. Victor saw the calculation. Ethan's gun still smoking. 2 men bleeding in snow. Dorothy as witness. Town turning against him. This ain't over, Blackwell. Never thought it was. I'll be back. With more men. With federal marshals if I have to. And when I'm done, you'll be swinging from a rope, and my family will be home where they belong. Looking forward to it. Victor wheeled his horse. Brennan, get my men. We're leaving. The sheriff dismounted, helped the wounded men onto their horses. Couldn't meet Ethan's eyes. You know this is wrong, Ethan told him quiet. You know what he is. Hayes said nothing, mounted up, rode away. Victor's voice carried back. 3 days, Blackwell. 3 days and I'm coming with an army. Ethan watched them go, then turned to Dorothy. You all right, I'm alive. That's more than I expected when they showed up. She looked at her burning home. 60 years of memories. Gone. I'm sorry, don't be. Was time for a change anyway. Dorothy squared her shoulders. Take me to your ranch. I'll tend those girls while you figure out how to stop that monster. Dorothy, don't argue. I got nothing left here. Might as well make myself useful. Ethan helped Dorothy onto Ghost, mounted behind her. They rode toward his ranch while smoke rose behind them. You love her. Statement, not question. Ethan's hands tightened on the reins. I barely know her. You love her anyway. Silence. Known it since I saw you carry her out of that street. Way you looked at her, like she mattered. She does matter. See, that's love. Seeing someone's worth when the whole world says they got none. More silence. Elizabeth would approve. You know, Ethan's breath caught. You didn't know my wife. Didn't have to. Any woman who loved you would want you to love again. Would want you to be happy. That's what love is. I'm scared. First time he'd said it out loud. Of what losing again? Losing her. Losing those girls. I can't bury another family. Dorothy's hand found his. Squeezed. Then don't lose them. Fight for them. With everything you got. They rode the rest of the way in silence. When they arrived, Sarah ran out to meet them, relief flooding her face. You came back. Told you I would. Then she saw Dorothy. Mrs. Peaton. Call me Dorothy, child, and I'm staying. That all right with you? Sarah's eyes filled. More than all right. The two women embraced, both crying, both survivors. The wagon carrying Victor Mitchell disappeared over the horizon. Sarah couldn't stop shaking, not from fear, from something else entirely, something she'd never felt before. Freedom. 3 weeks passed. Legal proceedings moved forward. Victor's trial was set for spring. Evidence was overwhelming. Even his expensive lawyer couldn't spin it. Sarah Ann Mitchell. Judge Harrison read from official documents. By authority vested in me, I grant you dissolution of marriage to Victor Mitchell. You are hereby free. Free of him. Free of his name if you choose. Free to build the life you deserve. Sarah took the paper, hands shaking. Free. She said the word quiet. Testing it. Free. The town changed too. Sheriff Hayes resigned. Nobody was surprised. A new sheriff took his place. First time anyone could remember choosing law over loyalty. The girls flourished in ways Sarah hadn't thought possible. Hannah started sleeping through the night. First time in years she didn't wake up screaming. The dark circles under her eyes began to fade. Claire spoke more every day, full sentences now, sometimes whole conversations. She still drew constantly, but the pictures changed. Less violence, more color, more family. Rose attached herself to Ethan like a barnacle, followed him everywhere, helped with chores, chattered constantly. Mr. Cowboy, why do horses eat hay? Because they like it. But why hay? Why not cookies? Because cookies ain't good for horses. What about cake? Also not good. What about pie? I like pie. Maybe horses like pie too. Tell you what, you finish your breakfast and I'll think about it. Think about pie for horses. Think about pie for you. Rose's face lit up. Deal. Sarah watched these exchanges with warmth she'd almost forgotten existed. This was what family was supposed to look like. What childhood was supposed to feel like. Not fear, not pain, just simple everyday moments that added up to something beautiful. Dawn came cold and gray. Ethan had been watching since midnight, saw the first rider crest the hill as sun touched the horizon. Then another, and another. They're here. Sarah joined him at the window. Her face was pale but steady. How many can't tell yet, at least a dozen. The Reverend don't see him, he's not coming. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, we planned for this. Sarah nodded, went to wake the girls. Dorothy loaded rifles, 3 of them laid out on the table. More than they had hands for, but she loaded them anyway. If we get overrun, she told Sarah, you take the girls through the back window. There's a root cellar 50 yards behind the barn. Hide there. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Dorothy, promise me. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. I promise. Good. Now let's show these boys what happens when they mess with the wrong family. The riders stopped at the property line. Ethan counted them. 18 men, Victor in front, Sheriff Hayes beside him, the rest a mix of hired guns and local thugs. Behind them, tied to a horse, was the boy Ethan had paid to take his message. His stomach dropped. Victor smiled. Looking for someone, Blackwell? Let the boy go. He's got nothing to do with this. He tried to deliver a message to Fort Carson. That makes him involved. Victor gestured. One of his men shoved the boy off the horse. He fell hard into snow. Don't worry, he's alive. For now. What do you want, Victor? You know what I want. My wife. My daughters. And you swinging from a rope for kidnapping and assault ain't gonna happen. No, Victor laughed. Look around, Blackwell. 18 men. I got the law on my side. I got the numbers. What do you got? A broken down cabin and a handful of women. The cabin door opened. Sarah stepped onto the porch, rifle in her hands, eyes hard as granite. He's got me. Victor's smile flickered. Sarah, put that down before you hurt yourself. 15 years you told me what to do. Hit me when I didn't obey. 15 years I took it. Not anymore. You think a rifle makes you dangerous? Sarah fired. The shot tore through the air close enough to Victor's head to part his hair. His horse reared. He barely kept his seat. Next one goes between your eyes. Sarah's voice didn't shake. I ain't the woman you married, Victor. I ain't the woman you beat. I'm something new, and I ain't afraid of you no more. Silence fell over the property. The hired guns shifted uneasily. They'd signed up to intimidate a rancher and collect some runaways. Nobody said anything about a woman who could shoot. Sheriff Hayes spoke up. Mrs. Mitchell put down the weapon. You're only making this worse. Worse, Sarah laughed harsh and bitter. Worse than 15 years of hell. Worse than having my babies damaged before they were born. Yeah, I know about that now. Got the doctor's testimony right here. She held up the paper. Proves you paid him to lie. Proves you blamed me for what you did. Victor's face went white. That's right. Your man talked, wrote it all down. How you paid him to lie. How you blamed me for what you did. She looked at the hired guns. I got 3 witnesses too. Women from town ready to testify about every beating they saw. The hired guns exchanged glances. This wasn't what they'd been told. This wasn't just collecting property. This was something else entirely. This is madness. Victor screamed, she's my wife. Those are my daughters. The law. The law is coming. A new voice from behind Victor's men. Ethan's heart leaped. Reverend Warren rode into view. Behind him, 8 men and women from town. Armed, grim-faced, ready. What is this? Victor sputtered. Justice. Warren positioned himself between the 2 groups, something that's been missing from Thornhill for too long. You're a preacher, not a lawman. No, but he is. From the hill behind Ethan's cabin, more riders appeared. Judge William Harrison, 2 federal deputies, a badge that gleamed in morning light. Ethan let out a breath he'd been holding for 3 days. Victor Mitchell. Harrison's voice carried across the snow. By the authority of the Federal Territorial Court, I'm placing you under arrest for aggravated assault, fraud, and abuse resulting in bodily harm. This is absurd. I'm a respected... You're a monster. Harrison dismounted, walked forward until he stood face to face with Victor. I've read the testimony. I've seen the evidence. You beat your wife near to death for giving you daughters instead of sons. You damaged your own children before they were born, and you did it all while hiding behind the law. I want my lawyer. You'll get one. In federal prison, where you'll stand trial for crimes that make decent men sick. Victor's eyes darted, looking for escape, finding none. His hired guns were backing away. Nobody wanted part of this anymore. Sheriff Hayes cleared his throat. Judge Harrison, sir, I should inform you that I have legal papers. Worthless. Harrison didn't even look at him. Any local ruling is superseded by federal authority, and I'm exercising that authority right now. Hayes's mouth opened, closed. He had nothing. Deputies, Harrison gestured. Take Mr. Mitchell into custody. The 2 men moved forward. Victor snapped. He drew his pistol, pointed it at Sarah. Nobody's taking me anywhere. Ethan was moving before Victor finished speaking. Hit the ground between Sarah and the gun. Ethan, no. Victor pulled the trigger. The shot echoed across the prairie. Ethan waited for pain, for blood, for life draining away. Nothing. He opened his eyes. Victor stood frozen, pistol smoking in his hand. But the bullet hadn't hit Ethan. It had hit the porch post, because Hannah Mitchell, 10 years old and terrified and brave beyond measure, had shoved her mother aside and knocked Ethan off balance in the same moment. The 3 of them lay tangled on the porch while Victor stared in disbelief. You missed, Hannah's voice rang out, something fierce and triumphant in it. You always said I was worthless, but I just saved them both. Victor raised his gun again. 3 rifles cracked simultaneously. Judge Harrison, Reverend Warren, Dorothy Peaton, all 3 had been aiming since the moment Victor drew. Victor Mitchell fell from his horse, didn't get up. not dead. The shots had taken him in the shoulder, the hip, the leg. Deliberate, precise. Enough to stop him, not enough to kill. Surgeon! Harrison barked. One of the townspeople rushed forward, but Victor was done. Bleeding in snow. Finished. Sarah scrambled to her feet, looked at her husband bleeding in the snow, walked forward, stood over him. 15 years, she said quietly. 15 years I prayed for this moment, dreamed about it. Now it's here. And you know what I feel, Victor groaned. Tried to speak. Nothing. You ain't worth hating. You ain't worth anything. She turned her back on him, walked to her daughters, pulled all four into her arms. Hannah Claire Rose and baby Ivy. It's over, she whispered. It's finally over. Behind her, deputies shackled Victor Mitchell for the last time. 3 months later, Sarah stood in a courtroom in Fort Carson. The trial had been swift, evidence overwhelming. Victor's lawyer tried every trick, but the facts were brutal and clear. Tell the court, Mrs. Mitchell, about the night of February 14th. Sarah's voice stayed steady. He dragged me into the street. In front of the whole town. Beat me because I'd given him another daughter instead of a son. He kicked me in the ribs, raised his boot over my head. Would have killed me if Ethan Blackwell hadn't intervened. Victor's lawyer stood, smug smile on his face. Mrs. Mitchell, isn't it true you left your husband's home voluntarily, that you chose to live with Mr. Blackwell? I chose to survive. And isn't it also true, the lawyer paused for effect, that you and Mr. Blackwell have been intimate? The courtroom gasped. Sarah's face went red. That ain't relevant. Answer the question, please. Judge Harrison intervened. Counselor, where is this going? Going to prove, Your Honor, that Mrs. Mitchell is not the innocent victim she claims to be. That she abandoned her lawful husband for her lover, he spat the word, and that she is, in fact, pregnant. Silence crashed through the courtroom. All eyes turned to Sarah. She stood, hand protective over her abdomen. Yes, I'm pregnant. Victor's face twisted with rage. Whose is it? Yours. The word hit like a slap. What, I'm 4 months along. Was already pregnant when Ethan found me. This is your child, Victor, your 5th daughter. She'd seen a doctor the week before. Confirmed it, girl. No, 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 no. Victor lunged from the defendant's table. It can't be another girl, another daughter, he was screaming now. 5. 5 daughters. The Mitchell name dies. It dies with me. Complete breakdown. In front of judge, jury, everyone, proving everything Sarah said was true. Order. Harrison banged his gavel. Remove the defendant. Victor was dragged from the courtroom, still screaming about daughters, about curses, about God's judgment, proving he was exactly the monster they said. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours. Fast for a trial this serious, but the evidence was overwhelming. The testimony devastating. Victor's outburst sealed it. We, the jury, find the defendant, Victor Mitchell, guilty of aggravated assault, guilty of fraud, guilty of abuse resulting in bodily harm, guilty on all counts. Victor didn't react, sat slumped in his chair. Broken. Everything he'd built his identity on, masculinity, control, the Mitchell name, gone. Harrison's sentencing was swift and harsh. Victor Mitchell, I've presided over many trials, seen many kinds of evil. But what you did to your wife, to your unborn children, to your daughters, that is a special kind of cruelty. You blame God. You blamed your wife. You blamed everyone but yourself. But the truth, you are the curse, Mr. Mitchell. You and men like you. Men who think violence makes them strong. Who think control equals love. You wanted sons to carry your name good, because your name should die. Some legacies deserve to end. I hereby sentence you to 20 years in federal prison. No possibility of early release. Take him away. Deputies led Victor out. He didn't fight, didn't speak, just empty. 3 months after sentencing, Dorothy rode to Ethan's ranch, face grim, got news from Fort Carson. Victor tried to escape. Sarah's blood went cold. Is he? Failed. Got shot trying to climb the wall. He's alive. Barely. In the prison hospital now. Sarah stood silent for a long moment, then spoke. I'm going. Ethan looked up sharply. What, I'm going to see him? To the prison hospital. I need to. Sarah, you don't owe him. I don't owe him anything. But I need to do this. For me, to close this chapter completely. Ethan studied her face. You sure never been more sure of anything. Pause. Will you come with me to the door? But inside, that conversation needs to be just you and him. For closure. She nodded. When tomorrow? 3 days later, they reached Fort Carson Federal Prison. Stone walls, iron bars. The place where Victor would die. Either from wounds or old age. Either way here. Never free again. Sarah took a deep breath. Ready? Ethan squeezed her hand. You got this. Victor lay in a narrow bed, shackled to the frame, bandages covering the chest and shoulder. Looked 20 years older than he was. The guard opened the door. You got 10 minutes, ma'am. Thank you. The door closed behind her. She stood there, looking at the man who'd destroyed 15 years of her life. He looked small, pathetic, nothing like the monster in her nightmares. Come to gloat, voice weak, raspy. No. Sarah pulled a chair close to the bed, sat down, hand protective over her pregnant belly. Came to tell you something. What? That you won, that you destroyed me. No, Victor. You destroyed yourself. I came to tell you about forgiveness. He laughed. Bitter. Painful. You forgiving me, that's supposed to make me feel better. I ain't forgiving you for you. I'm forgiving you for me. So I can move on. So I can be happy. So your poison stops spreading. She paused, breathed. For 15 years, I let you define me. Let you tell me I was worthless, cursed, broken. And I believed it. But you were wrong. I ain't cursed. You were. I ain't broken. You are. I ain't worthless. You are. And I'm done carrying your weight. She stood. This baby. She touched her belly. She's the last piece of you in my life. And I'm going to raise her to be nothing like you. Going to teach her that women have worth. That violence isn't strength. That real men protect, they don't destroy. Everything you weren't, she'll know what men should be. Because Ethan is her papa now, not you, never you. Victor's voice cracked. I'm dying. Doctor says the infection's spreading. Bullet wounds ain't healing. Few months, maybe less. He looked at her, really looked, for the first time in 15 years. I'm sorry, Sarah's breath caught. What I'm sorry, for all of it, for every hit, every word, His voice broke. I loved you once, when we first married, before the pressure got too much, before my father's voice in my head got too loud. I loved you, and I destroyed that. Destroyed us. Tears on his face. I don't expect forgiveness. Don't deserve it. Just wanted you to know. Under all the anger and violence, there was a man who loved you. Once. Long ago, Sarah stood, looked down at him. I know, that's what made it worse. If you'd been pure evil, I could have hated you clean. But you were broken, damaged by your father like you damaged our girls. Cycle of violence. That's what makes me saddest. You could have been different, could have broken free. But you chose violence, and that choice, that's all on you. She walked to the door. Goodbye, Victor. I hope you find peace. Really, I do. She left without looking back. 2 weeks later, Ethan asked Sarah to marry him. Not fancy, not planned. Just came out one morning while she was feeding chickens and he was mending fence. I've been thinking, dangerous. Shut up. But he was smiling. I've been thinking about us, about the girls, about what comes next. Sarah set down the feed bucket. And I reckon that is if you wanted to. He took off his hat, twisted it in his hands like a nervous boy. What I mean is, Ethan Blackwell, are you trying to propose to me? I'm doing a terrible job of it, apparently. Sarah crossed her arms, eyes twinkling. Try again. Do it proper. Ethan took a breath, got down on one knee, right there in the mud. Sarah Ann Whitfield. My maiden name was Whitfield. I know, thought you might want it back. Her eyes filled. Sarah Ann Whitfield. I ain't got much. A half-built ranch, a stubborn horse, more grief than one man ought to carry. But I got a heart that started beating again the day I found you in that street. And if you'll have me, all the broken, messed up parts of me, I'd like to spend whatever time I got left trying to make you happy. Sarah stared at him. This man who'd saved her, sheltered her, showed her daughters what a real man looked like. That was better. That a yes. Get up out of the mud. He stood, hat still twisted in his hands. Sarah. Yes. The word came out choked with emotion. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll take your broken parts. Yes. Yes, yes. She threw her arms around him. For a long moment, they just held each other. Not kissing, not speaking, just holding on. Then a small voice from the cabin doorway. Does this mean Mr. Cowboy is going to be our papa now? Rose stood there, eyes wide, hope naked on her face. Ethan looked at Sarah. She nodded. He knelt to Rose's level. Only if you want me to be. I want. I want you to be our papa. She spun around. Hannah, Claire, Mr. Cowboy is going to be our papa. The cabin erupted. Hannah appeared first, trying to look unimpressed, failing. Claire followed, clutching a drawing. 5 people in front of a house labeled family. Dorothy came out, wiping her eyes with her apron. About damn time. Even baby Ivy seemed to sense something important, babbling and waving her arms. They gathered in the yard, this strange patched-together family, and for the first time Sarah understood what home really meant. Not a place. People. These people. The wedding was set for the first Sunday of May. Reverend Warren insisted on performing the ceremony himself, said it was the least he could do after standing by while Sarah suffered all those years. Redemption ain't just for sinners, he told Ethan. Sometimes the righteous need it too. The whole town wanted to come. Sarah said no to most of them. These people watched Victor beat me in the street. They don't get to celebrate my happiness now. Some of them helped in the end, Dorothy pointed out. Some, not all. I know who stood with us and who just watched. In the end, the guest list was small. Dorothy, Judge Harrison, who made the trip from Fort Carson special, a handful of townspeople who'd actually risked something when it mattered, and family, the real kind. The morning of the wedding, Sarah woke up shaking. Not fear this time. Something else. Something she'd almost forgotten the name of. Joy. Hannah found her sitting by the window, tears streaming down her face. Mama, what's wrong? Nothing, baby. Nothing's wrong. Then why are you crying? Sarah pulled her oldest daughter close. Because I never thought I'd have this, a real wedding, a good man, a future that don't hurt to think about. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then I never thought I'd have a papa worth having. Oh, Hannah, it's true. All those years I prayed for someone to save us. Prayed and nothing happened. Started thinking God wasn't listening, or worse, that we didn't deserve saving. We always deserve saving. I know that now. Took Mr. Ethan. She caught herself. Took Papa to show me. Sarah held her daughter tighter. This child who'd grown up too fast, who'd carried weight no 10-year-old should carry. I'm sorry, Hannah, for everything you went through. Don't be sorry, Mama. Just be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. The ceremony was simple, beautiful. Behind the cabin where Ethan built an altar himself. Simple wooden arch covered in spring flowers. Nothing fancy, but solid, like him. Sarah wore white cotton with simple lace. Dorothy had sewn it over 3 weeks. New, clean, no ghosts attaching. The girls formed her honor guard. Hannah carrying ivy, Claire with a bouquet, Rose throwing petals with enthusiastic abandon. Ethan stood waiting, his best clothes, hair combed for once, boots actually clean, but his hands were shaking. Do you, Ethan Blackwell, take Sarah Ann Whitfield as your wife? I do. With this ring, I take you as my wife, to honor, to protect, to love, as long as I draw breath. And do you, Sarah Ann Whitfield, take Ethan Blackwell as your husband? I do. With this ring, I take you as my husband, to trust, to stand beside, to love, even when I'm scared to. Even when you're scared, especially then. By the power vested in me by God in the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride. Ethan cradled Sarah's face. Gentle. So gentle. Hello, Mrs. Blackwell. Hello, Mr. Blackwell. He kissed her. The girls cheered. Dorothy cried. Judge Harrison applauded. When they pulled apart, Sarah was laughing and crying at the same time. We did it. We did. Now what? Now we live. 1 year later, February 14th, 1879. Full circle. 1 year since Ethan heard Sarah scream in the street. 1 year since everything changed. They celebrated with a quiet dinner. Just family. Around the table sat Sarah nursing baby Hope, born in September. Ethan, Hannah now 11 and growing strong. Claire 8 and speaking freely. Rose 6 still following Ethan everywhere. Ivy 1-year-old walking and babbling. Dorothy who'd moved in permanently. Dorothy raised her glass. To second chances. Hannah to family. Rose to Papa. Claire soft but clear. To love that heals instead of hurts. Sarah stood, looked around the table. To all of it. The pain that brought us here. The courage that kept us going. The man who saw us when nobody else would. And the life we're building together. One day at a time. She met Ethan's eyes. To home. To home, everyone echoed. Later that night, Sarah and Ethan sat on the porch, looking at stars. Can't sleep, he asked. Don't want to. Don't want this day to end. There'll be more days. I know, but this one's special. She turned to face him. A year ago, I was dying in the snow. Now look at us. It's a miracle. No, Sarah shook her head. Miracles are things that just happen. We built this, you and me and the girls, through hard work and harder choices and refusing to give up. That's better than a miracle, much better. Miracles can be taken away. What we built. What we're building, that's ours forever. Ethan pulled her close. They held each other while snow began to fall. Outside, winter returning. Inside, warmth. Love. Safety. Two broken people who had found each other in the wreckage of their lives. Two hearts that had learned to beat again. 1 year ago, Sarah Ann Whitfield had been dying in a frozen street. Certain help would never come. Now she was Sarah Ann Blackwell. Wife, mother, survivor. Standing in her own home. Surrounded by people who loved her. Not because life was easy, it wasn't. Not because the pain was forgotten. It never would be. But because she'd learned something that 15 years of suffering had almost beaten out of her. Hope was stronger than fear. Love was stronger than hate. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes the good people won. She pressed closer to her husband, her partner, her home. Ethan, yeah, we made it. We did. What comes next? He smiled against her hair. Everything comes next. And Sarah Ann Blackwell, who'd once prayed for death, found herself praying for one more tomorrow. Then another. And another. A lifetime of tomorrows stretching out before her like an open road, ready to be traveled. Together.